All right, jumping into another deep dive. Today we're headed down to Dallas, Texas,
Okay.
taking a look at the Cosmetic Surgical Center's website.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at first glance, it really seems like your typical cosmetic surgery website, right? Before and after photos, you've got your list of procedures.
Right.
But there were a few things that caught our eye when we were going through this one.
Absolutely. Yeah, like at first glance, it seems like a pretty standard site. You've got the before and after photos you mentioned and just like a simple list of the procedures that they offer.
Right.
But the sheer volume of what they're offering is pretty notable. We're talking like everything from, injectables to some pretty complex surgeries.
Yeah.
So, it's a high volume practice, which kind of, that tells us a few things right off the bat.
Right. And speaking of high volume,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing that they emphasize a lot, and I've seen this on other cosmetic surgery websites,
Yeah.
but they really kind of hit it hard here, is they highlight that Dr. Vasdev Rai, who's one of the surgeons there,
Right.
has performed over 25,000 surgeries himself.
Wow. Yeah.
And they say that he's consistently ranked as like, a top 10 Dallas plastic surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a magic number in this field to build up that reputation?
Well, and in surgery experience definitely matters.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about 25,000 procedures, that signifies a lot of, exposure to a variety of cases, anatomical differences, potential complications.
Oh, absolutely.
So, it suggests a certain level of comfort, I think, that some patients might find really reassuring.
Right.
But it also kind of begs the question, how specialized can one surgeon really be if they're doing 25,000 procedures kind of across the board?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Because it makes you wonder, does someone go to a practice like this for a very specific niche procedure?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it more about finding a surgeon that's, for lack of a better term, kind of seen it all at this point?
Right. And, speaking of seeing it all, one thing that really stood out to me about this website was their emphasis on patient experience.
Okay.
They go into a lot of detail about, comfort, communication, confidentiality.
Interesting.
They even offer like various email options, for discreet inquiries.
Right.
So it's really, it's not just about the surgery itself. It
Yeah.
seems like they're really trying to cater to the entire process, the entire patient experience.
Now that you mention it, most of the surgery websites I've seen are all about like the after photos.
Yeah.
That's the transformation.
Right.
This one almost feels like it's speaking to a different kind of patient.
Perhaps. Yeah. This focus on patient experience, especially that emphasis on discretion, makes me think that they might be targeting a very specific demographic.
Right.
Maybe busy professionals, individuals who are very image conscious, but also want to keep their procedures private.
Right. It's like they're trying to normalize the idea of cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
Like this is just another, self-care option.
Yeah.
Like getting a facial or massage,
Yeah.
but with longer lasting results.
Right. And they are definitely trying to project that sense of normalcy. But there's one section that kind of caught my eye.
Okay.
And it has to do with combining procedures.
Oh, okay.
They use a tummy tuck as an example,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not your average tummy tuck.
Right. This is the one where they combined it with liposuction.
Yeah, exactly.
And addressed a scar from a previous surgery.
Yeah, yes. And they even include a testimonial from that patient,
Right.
which, felt very personal, very specific.
Yes, it did.
And, medically speaking, combining a tummy tuck with other procedures, especially after, a major abdominal surgery like that, it makes sense.
Right.
You'd want to address any potential issues with scarring, muscle repair overall, aesthetic harmony all in one go.
So from a surgical standpoint, it's logical.
Yeah.
But then it makes you wonder, why highlight this particular combination on the website?
Right.
It feels very targeted.
It does, and that's the marketing genius of it.
Yeah.
By featuring this case study, they're not just talking about their capabilities.
Right.
They're directly addressing a very specific need. They're saying, hey, we understand your unique situation, and we've successfully helped other people just like you.
And speaking of catering to a diverse clientele, I was really kind of taken aback by how much they highlight male cosmetic surgery.
Interesting.
I feel like a lot of times you see, maybe hair transplant or a little bit of lipo.
Right.
But they go all in. They're talking facelifts, eyelid surgery. They even mentioned sculpting defined pectoral contours.
Wow.
It's a whole different ballgame. It's like they're saying, hey, whatever your ideal male physique is, we can get you there.
Brr.
Which I don't know. I guess I'm a little surprised. I wouldn't have thought male cosmetic surgery was that extensive.
It's definitely a growing trend, though. And you know how we were talking about their emphasis on, like, body sculpting? Well, that appeals to both genders.
Oh, right.
It's less about fitting, one specific mold and more about like personalized enhancement. And it seems like this practice, they're really aware of how these trends are evolving.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because this website, on the surface, it's, advertising services.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you dig a little deeper, it really reflects these like broader societal shifts.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, like, are we just becoming more preoccupied with physical appearance? Or is this just like the natural progression of having, more options available?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, on the one hand, we can't deny that societal beauty standards, they definitely have an impact, right? Especially with, social media and the constant barrage of images.
Oh, absolutely.
But on the other hand, people are also more empowered these days to take control of their appearance.
Right.
And, for some, that means turning to procedures that maybe they wouldn't have considered in the past.
So how do we kind of reconcile those two things? Because it feels like a contradiction in a way.
Yeah.
This pressure to look a certain way versus, individual empowerment.
Maybe it's not so much about, conforming to a specific ideal,
Okay.
but more about just aligning your physical self with your own personal sense of self.
Right.
So if someone feels insecure about, a certain aspect of their appearance,
Right.
and they have the means to change it, well, that can be a form of empowerment in and of itself.
It's like taking ownership over your own narrative, I guess. Even if that narrative involves, a little surgical intervention.
Right.
But then, it brings up the question of accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because these procedures can be expensive.
Absolutely.
So is this sense of agency and self-improvement, is that truly available to everyone?
Right.
Or is it primarily for, those who can afford it?
That's a really crucial point. As these procedures become more accepted, more commonplace,
Right.
It's really essential to consider the potential for disparity.
Right.
Because, not everyone has the same resources.
Of course.
And access to these procedures could become, yet another marker of social stratification.
It's like creating this divide almost between, the haves and the have-nots in terms of who can afford to like sculpt and refine their appearance.
Exactly. And that's definitely a conversation that we need to be having as these trends, continue to evolve.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we're not just perpetuating existing inequalities.
So bringing this all back to the Cosmetic Surgical Center.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're consciously trying to, reflect these broader societal trends on their website?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they just trying to sell surgeries?
Well, it's impossible to know their true intentions, of course.
Sure.
But it's clear that they're tapping into, a very specific cultural moment.
Yeah.
Body image, self-improvement, personal agency. These are all themes that are really resonating with people right now.
Right. And this practice seems to have found a way to position themselves right at the intersection of all of that.
Yeah.
And one thing I keep coming back to is Dr. Vasdev Rai's experience. 25,000 surgeries. It's an incredible number.
It really is.
And it makes you wonder, what does it take to reach that level of expertise in a field like this?
Right.
It can't just be repetition.
Right. It's definitely not just about the number of procedures performed.
Okay.
It's about, continuous learning, adapting to new technologies, refining techniques.
Okay.
I mean, the field of cosmetic surgery is constantly evolving.
I'll bet.
So, a skilled surgeon really needs to be a lifelong student, always striving for improvement.
So it's like reaching a level of mastery,
Mm-hmm.
but also knowing that there's always more to learn.
Exactly.
Which is interesting because they mentioned that both Dr. Vasdev Rai and his son, Dr. Surjit, are both board certified.
Right.
So what does that actually mean in terms of qualifications?
That's a really important distinction. Board certification for plastic surgeons, it's a very rigorous process.
Okay.
It signifies a much higher level of training and expertise.
Okay.
It goes above and beyond, medical school and residency.
So it's not just like, I'm going to be a plastic surgeon and I hang up a jingle.
Exactly. And it's actually a voluntary process.
Oh, interesting.
So board certification is a way for patients to really identify surgeons who have committed to that higher standard, to ethical practice, and to, staying up to date in their field.
So it's like a stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're in good hands, literally.
You could say that.
Yeah.
It gives patients, an added layer of reassurance, which is so crucial when making decisions about their bodies and their health.
Right, absolutely. This has been really fascinating.
Yeah.
We started with what seemed like a pretty typical cosmetic surgery website.
Right.
But we ended up kind of uncovering all these thought-provoking questions about body image societal trends, the pursuit of self-improvement.
It really highlights how something like cosmetic surgery, which, on the surface might seem pretty straightforward,
Right.
can offer these really interesting insights into our culture, our values, our evolving relationship with our bodies.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, the decisions that we make about our bodies and how much of that is influenced by personal factors versus societal factors.
Absolutely. And the fact that, they highlight the board certifications so prominently,
Right.
it kind of suggests that they understand, how important that trust is in this field. Patients are becoming more discerning, more informed these days.
Right.
They're not just looking for a surgeon who can perform a procedure.
Right.
They want someone with credentials, experience, a commitment to ethical practice.
Especially in an age where it seems like anyone with an Instagram filter can be like, oh yeah, I'm a beauty expert.
Exactly.
So it's almost like you need that official certification to kind of cut through all the noise and make an informed decision.
Precisely. Yeah. It's about having, a framework for evaluating expertise and making sure that we're not basing our decisions on, fleeting trends or social media hype.
It's like the Wild West of self-improvement out there.
It really is.
Which kind of brings me to something else that I thought was interesting about how they presented the information on the website. It's not just like, here are individual procedures. It's almost like a menu of options, like you would see at like a spa.
Right.
Like you can customize your ideal self piece by piece.
That's a great observation. And it really speaks to, I think, a broader trend in cosmetic surgery.
Okay.
This move towards what's often called like the lunchtime lift mentality. Procedures are becoming less invasive, recovery times are shorter.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that, you can just seamlessly integrate these enhancements into your life without anyone really, being the wiser.
Right. It's like you want this remarkable transformation.
Yeah.
But also like you want it to look effortless.
Exactly.
Like it's just part of your natural everyday routine.
Right. It's almost like there's this unspoken pressure to look like you haven't had any work done. Even when you have, it's very strange.
It really is.
Yeah.
So it makes you think about how our perceptions of beauty and enhancement are constantly evolving.
Right.
And how, this website and others like it are both reflecting and kind of shaping those perceptions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really complex and fascinating interplay, between individual desires and societal pressures and technological advancement.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Wow.
And what a journey it's been.
It has been.
We started with this seemingly straightforward cosmetic surgery website.
Right.
And we ended up exploring everything from surgical techniques to societal trends to the very nature of beauty itself.
It's amazing what you can uncover when you really start digging beneath the surface.
It really is.
Yeah.
So to our listener out there, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Cosmetic Surgical Center.
Yeah, thank you.
We hope this has given you a lot to think about.
Absolutely.
And as you continue to navigate, the ever-evolving world of cosmetic surgery, just remember to approach it with a critical eye.
Right.
Ask questions and make informed decisions that align with your own personal values and goals.
Couldn't agree more.